I'm the awesome tutor, and today we're going to be looking at the female hormones and the menstrual cycle and the artificial control of fertility. First of all, what secretes what in the menstrual cycle? The pituitary gland, found near the brain, secretes FSH and LH. These are both hormones. The ovary secretes estrogen. And now we're going to look at the cycle and when they release these female hormones. Okay, so the first thing that happens is the pituitary gland secretes FSH. And this causes the egg in the ovary to mature. So now we know what FSH does. Causes the egg to mature. Then, the FSH that has been secreted causes the ovary to secrete estrogen. And as the estrogen levels rise, the lining of the womb actually gets thicker. The lining of the womb, the lining of the uterus, it gets thicker to prepare for the development of the embryo, of the egg to an embryo, then eventually to a fetus. And then the estrogen causes the pituitary gland to secrete LH. And because the LH has now been secreted, it causes the egg in the ovary that has now matured to be released. And this is called ovulation, the release of a mature egg from the ovary. So we know that what estrogen does, it makes the lining of the womb thicker, controls the buildup of the lining of the womb. It also allows ovulation, allows a mature egg to be released. So allows ovulation. But there's one other thing it does do, which it actually inhibits the production of FSH. So if it is released and it is in high level, it stops the production of FSH. And it is used in many oral contraceptives or contraceptive pills, but we're going to go into that next, like later. So FSH it also causes the ovary to secrete estrogen. So it causes ovary to secrete estrogen. Now let's look at this graph. Each of these hormones, when they're at their high point, this is when the egg is actually released. And this is ovulation. And then the egg goes to the womb, and then stays in the womb, and then if it has been fertilized, it will develop. If it has not been fertilized, it will go down through the menstrual flow. And that's actually at the beginning of the cycle, from 0 to 5 days. Yeah, that's it for this. Now we're going to go on to the next part. Okay, so the artificial control of fertility. In this modern age, it is possible to control the fertility of women, to stop her getting pregnant or to get pregnant, say if she's infertile or there is something wrong with her uterus or her reproductive organs. So, the oral contraceptives or contraceptive pills, they're a drug that you take so you don't get pregnant. It contains mainly estrogen, but also some progesterone. And these hormones, they affect the ovaries in a way that stops the release of any eggs from the ovary. So it stops the release of any eggs from the ovary. And what happens to the FSH production? Well, what we said earlier, one of the functions of estrogen is to inhibit the production of FSH. So FSH production stops. And because FSH production stops, what's the function of FSH? It causes the egg to mature. So if the FSH production has been stopped because of estrogen, then no eggs mature. And so, because this pill stops the release of any eggs and it causes no eggs to mature, you don't get pregnant. Next. Okay, so fertility drugs. What do the fertility drugs do? they allow you to get pregnant. When and why would you use fertility drugs? Okay, first of all, I just said to make you pregnant. But why can't you make yourself pregnant in the first place? Because, say there's something wrong with the production of your hormones. You don't produce enough hormones, you don't produce enough FSH or LH, the specific hormones needed for the eggs to be released, for ovulation to take place, so you can get pregnant, to have babies and have a nice family. So, when there is a lack of hormone production, and the hormone production of the hormones that allow fertility. What do these drugs contain? They mainly contain FSH and LH. What does FSH do? Causes the egg to mature. What does LH do? Allows ovulation. And that's the basic things you need in order to get pregnant, in order to have the egg ready for fertilization. So I just said how they do it. The FSH causes the egg to mature, and the LH allows ovulation. The egg to be released from the ovary, and if you fertilize the egg, then you will get pregnant. Fertility drugs are also used in IVF treatment, which we're going to talk about next. Okay, so IVF, what does it stand for? In vitro fertilization. When the fallopian tube, first of all, what is the fallopian tube? It is the tube from which, when the egg is released from the ovary, it travels through the fallopian tube to the uterus. If the fallopian tube is damaged or there's something wrong with it, the egg cannot get to the uterus, so it cannot develop. And that is going to be used in vitro fertilization. First of all, FSH and LH are added. These are fertility drugs. What do? They cause a lot of eggs to mature at the same time, as shown here. They cause a lot of eggs to mature in the ovary at the same time. Then the eggs are collected, as shown here, and then semen is collected, and then it is mixed with the eggs, which will allow fertilization. So after the eggs have been collected from the ovary, they are put in a special solution, and then when the semen is collected, they are mixed with the eggs, so then fertilization can take place. This is external fertilization, fertilization outside the body. Because what also happens in the fallopian tube? That is usually where fertilization takes place. So we use IVF for external fertilization because there's something wrong with the fallopian tube. Next, after the fertilization has happened and the embryos have started to develop, we place the embryos in the uterus. Usually one or two embryos in the uterus, and hopefully or eventually the embryo will develop into a fetus and you can get pregnant and have babies. I'm going to go through it one more time. There's something wrong with the fallopian tube, so we use fertility drugs to make lots of eggs mature, collect them for external fertilization, and then we put them back into the womb of the mother. And now, for the last part of this video, I'm going to talk about problems with IVF and problems with oral contraceptives and stuff like that. Okay, so the problem with oral contraceptives is you have to take them regularly. If you forget to take it, then the normal hormones, the natural production of the hormones will start taking over, and it might lead to an unexpected release of an egg and an unexpected baby. IVF, main problem is it is expensive, really expensive, and it's not always successful. Sometimes it doesn't work. That's it. Bye.